You'll just take the seat, Doctor, and faces on it for one brief moment.
Have a seat. Make yourself comfortable, Doctor. Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
There's a sequestration order, but I'll explain it to you when the jury's in the room. All right, thank you. Yes, please, Ms. Regan.
Could you state your name, please?
My name is Dr. Anthony Jackson,
And could you spell your first and last name?
Anthony Jackson.
And where are you employed?
I'm employed at the Worcester Recovery Center and Hospital.
And what's your profession?
I'm a child and adolescent psychiatrist.
And when did you graduate from medical school?
1971.
And how long have you been a practicing psychiatrist?
I've been a practicing psychiatrist since 1974 and practicing child and adolescent psychiatry since 1978.
And are you board certified?
Yes, I am in adult psychiatry and in child and adolescent.
How long have you worked at Worcester State Hospital?
Since March of 2012.
And where did you work prior to that?
I worked at the Taunton State Hospital.
And how long did you work there?
Approximately 7 years. I'm not absolutely sure, but I think that's approximate.
Now, what is your position at Worcester State Hospital?
I'm the medical director for the adolescent continuing care units at the hospital.
And how long have you been in that position?
That's the position I held since I came to the hospital in 2012.
And what are your responsibilities?
My responsibilities are to supervise the adolescents who are admitted to the hospital, primarily the adolescent programs, and to supervise the psychiatrists who are treating the patients. I also have direct care responsibilities for a number of patients who are on our units and in the hospital.
Now, were you assigned to be the treating psychiatrist for Philip Chism in October of 2015?
I was.
And where was Philip Chism when you were assigned to be his treating psychiatrist?
He was located on the adult forensic unit at the hospital.
And for how long were you his treating psychiatrist?
I treated Philip throughout his stay there, so it would have been the middle of October through early November, I think November 4th.
And had you met Philip Chism previously?
Yes, I had.
And when was that?
That was 2 years ago in June of 2014, I believe. I was his attending psychiatrist on an earlier admission at that time.
Now, as his treating psychiatrist, what was your role?
My role was to evaluate and understand his clinical state of mind, to assess whether or not he had a mental illness or emotional and behavioral problems, and to coordinate the evaluation of the clinical treatment team that was working with Philip in the hospital.
Now, at the end of his stay in 2015, did you reach a diagnosis for Philip Chism?
I did.
And what was that diagnosis?
I made 2 diagnoses. One was a depressive state, best described in my view as a major depressive state, and another was a brief or transient psychotic episode.
Now, in forming your diagnosis, what did you rely on?
I relied on my clinical observations, the observations of the clinical team. I had available to me 2 psychological reports from done early in the fall. And I had the report of the clinician who saw Philip in the courtroom and referred him for a competency evaluation. I also coordinated with Dr. Virginia Merritt, who had the role of doing the competency evaluation itself, to the extent that we shared clinical information.
Now, when you mentioned the court evaluator, that would have been Dr. McMillan, correct?
That's correct.
Now, in reaching your diagnosis, did you rely in any way on information obtained in Philip's prior hospitalization in 2014?
No, I did not.
Now, you were aware that there was an incident at while he was in custody at the Department of Youth Services in June of 2014, correct?
Yes, I was.
And that was an incident where Philip was accused of attacking a clinician, correct?
That's my understanding.
And there were, but did you rely on that in any way informing your diagnosis?
No, I did not.
And you were aware that Philip was admitted to Boston Medical Center after the incident in the Department of Youth Services, correct?
Yes, I was.
Did you rely on those records in any way in reaching your diagnoses?
I relied on the record or my understanding of that admission in one sense. There was a question about whether there had been a diagnosable neurological condition on the admission to Boston Medical Center. And I reviewed the records that I had of that admission to assure myself that there was not a diagnosable neurological situation for Philip. So in that way, it was a part of a rule-out for me in my diagnostic understanding of Philip on this occasion.
I have no further questions.
Okay. Cross-examination, Ms. McDougall, please.
Now, Dr. Jackson, in the records, you produced may I approach the witness, Your Honor?
Sure.
Comprehensive psychiatric evaluation, is that correct?
That's correct.
And is that document I placed in front of you a complete copy of that? Understanding you may have other documents.
It appears complete to me.
Okay. Did you produce any other complete evaluations of Philip while he was at Worcester Recovery in October of 2015 to November 4th?
I generated a discharge summary.
Okay. And is that where you reached the diagnosis that you just described for Ms. Regan?
That's correct.
Okay. But when Philip was under your care in June of 2014, you did not diagnose him with a mental illness, is that correct?
That's correct. I did not offer a diagnosis at that time.
Hold on, you didn't offer a diagnosis, is your answer?
That's correct.
And nor did you place him on any medications in June of 2014?
That's correct.
In the sources of information in the comprehensive psychiatric evaluation I just showed you, you list the records from the past Worcester Recovery Center hospital, is that correct?
In the comprehensive evaluation,
Yes.
I believe I did.
And the Boston Medical Center admissions?
Yes.
And the notes from the admitting WRCH psychiatrist who admitted Philip Chism on October 15th, is that correct?
That's correct.
And the interview you did yourself with Philip Chism on October 16th, is that correct?
That's correct.
So the interviews of Philip Chism that you refer to as a source of information for your comprehensive psychiatric evaluation was solely the interview you had conducted on October 16th, not the interviews you conducted in June of 2014.
Are you referring now to the comprehensive evaluation?
I am, not the discharge.
Summary? Yes, that was the data I had when the discharge summary, when the comprehensive was compiled.
Okay, so you didn't rely at all on your prior contact with Philip in June of 2014?
No, I did not.
Okay. But you did consider and rely on the admitting psychiatrist's information he received from Philip,
Excuse
is that
me, I'm
correct?
very sorry.
Oh, sorry. Did you rely on the information obtained by the admitting psychiatrist at Worcester Recovery from October of 2015?
Yes.
And did you rely on Dr. Colleen McMillan's information from the 15A?
Yes.
I have nothing further, Your Honor.
Any legal? No. Okay, thank you, Doctor.
You're welcome.
Is that marked for identification, the report, the 1016 report?
I can make a copy.
Oh, you know what, Doctor, before you leave, I'm sorry. I have one question for you. I apologize. If you're going to just make yourself comfortable, please. And we can mark that for identification, please. Thank you. So in June of 2014, when you didn't offer a diagnosis, is that because it wasn't part of your treatment to offer a diagnosis, or because you didn't find that there was any mental health diagnosis to be made?
It would have been part of my role to offer a diagnosis and treatment had I the data available to me to make that determination, but I did not have the data available to me on that admission.
And what does it mean not to have the data available? Are you saying that you didn't have the data available because it didn't exist, or you didn't have the data available because what you reviewed didn't provide for a mental health diagnosis?
That's the latter.
Okay. All right. Any further questions? How about you, Ms. Regan? All right. Thank you, Doctor.
Watch your step coming down, Doctor.
Okay. So I'll hear from counsel on the issue. It's not apparent from the face of the motion, but I'm going to assume, and you'll let me know if my assumption is wrong, that the purpose of the voir dire is to understand the basis for the opinion for the scope of cross-examination. Is that right?
It is, Your Honor, and one of my particular concerns is that because Dr. Jackson did treat the defendant in June of 2014 and did not diagnose him with anything or prescribe him any medication, that would be a natural area of cross-examination. It is frankly not one I want to go into because I don't want this jury to hear that he was hospitalized in June of 2014 without the context of that hospitalization. I am assured by Ms. Regan that no matter what I ask on cross, the answer will not be a reliance on that June 2014 hospitalization. So I can certainly, I suppose, live with not asking him about the fact that he didn't diagnose him with anything in June of 2014. But again, this is my concern about Dr. Jackson's testimony in general is it is so intertwined and fraught with other information. He just said he relied on Dr. McMillan's evaluation, which is inadmissible. He relied on the Boston Medical Center admissions, which at this point is inadmissible. He relied on the notes from the admitting psychiatrist, who is not here to testify. I'm concerned about where we're going to end up after cross-examination. So
Okay, so let me, rather than wait for the jury to come back in, let's talk this through now. What cross-examination, and maybe the question's really premature. It seems to me that the Commonwealth's concern, if I understand it, is that the Commonwealth, under all the cases in this area, has a right to probe into the basis for an expert's opinion. And of course, the basis for the expert opinion has to be independently admissible, even if not admitted, under Nardi. DUIs versus juvenile and all the other cases that we talk about, including very recent cases. So, if I understand the Commonwealth's concern is that something may come out on direct or indeed cross as it relates to the basis for the opinion, and that may open the door to information that the Commonwealth, out of prudence, if there's a conviction, would prefer not to inquire of and not have it have to be part of the appellate brief. Is that basically it?
yes, sir.
Okay. So those are all reasonable concerns. I'll address them, but Ms. Regan has something to say before I do, so I'll hear from you.
The reason that as I understand it, Dr. Jackson did not read any diagnoses in 2014 is because I instructed Philip Chism not to talk to him. And Philip wouldn't waive the land warnings, and I instructed Dr. Jackson that Philip Chism wouldn't speak to him. So Dr. Jackson didn't have sufficient information to form a diagnosis.
Well, that's what I was trying to get at with my last question, actually, and I'm not sure, that was the whole point I was trying to get at with my last question. I'm not sure I got as clear an answer to that as I might like, but we can ask the question more precisely perhaps than I did, or I might listen to it more effectively than I evidently did. But I got the impression that he had data available, but didn't make a diagnosis. Now, maybe it's because he felt like he didn't have complete data available. But the comment I was going to make, and maybe we just voir dire that one last question I asked one more time to make sure, so that the defendant can make whatever strategic decision it makes. But I'm not going to add up years in my mind, but my sense is that there's at least 3/4 of a century of experience in the back table on making these strategic decisions. And if there's a conviction and there's a review of those issues, I am sure that the appellate courts will have that in mind. But rather than have anyone accidentally stumble into issues that weren't expected to be opened up on direct, why don't we just proceed with caution and let me go back to that last area of inquiry. All right, if we have the doctor come in one more time, please. And Ms. Regan, I hope you're standing up because you intend to ask the question rather than me.
I will.
Okay.
Well, I knew the answer.
Okay.
It gives me an advantage.
Well, all right. Well, I'd prefer you to inquire as well, and then Ms. McDougall will obviously have a right to follow up on
Come
cross.
right up, doctor. Come right up.
Make yourself comfortable again, doctor. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Dr. Jackson, why were you unable to make a diagnosis when Philip was in the hospital in 2014?
There wasn't enough data, neither in the record nor data that I could obtain from Philip to understand what a reasonable diagnosis might be. He did not appear at that time to me to show symptoms of mood or disorganization, and I did not probe extensively into his past background in terms of attempting to make a diagnosis.
And did you receive any instructions from me?
I did.
And can you explain?
I was told not to investigate the background of his situation and to confine my investigation to his clinical presentation on the unit as it affected his day-to-day functioning.
And by investigate, you mean speak to Philip, correct?
Yes, speak to Philip. That's correct.
No further questions.
Do you want to ask anything, Mr. McDougall?
And his clinical presentation on the unit in June of 2014 did not warrant medication, is that correct?
No, it did not.
And his clinical presentation on the unit in June of 2014 did not indicate he was having disorganized thinking or any overt psychosis.
Not that I could elicit.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, doctor.
You're welcome.
If you will, sir.
Your Honor, I'm sorry, I'd like to ask one more question, Dr. Jackson.
Just going to give you a workout now, sir.
Dr. Jackson, could you address the importance and the significance of a clinical interview with a patient in making an assessment or a diagnosis?
Well, I think it's a central part of a diagnostic evaluation.
And why is that?
Because a lot of the diagnostic information that is relevant to a diagnosis comes from the internal disclosure of the patient's state of mind, so one has to investigate that.
I have no further questions. Thank you, Dr.
Okay.
Jackson.
Dr. Stewart?
Okay. All right, so based on your understanding of the direct, Ms. McDougall, are there any issues that you wish to bring up by way of cross-examination before the jury's in the box?
Your Honor, I'm struggling with the questions I just asked because the fact is he was not behaving. The defense made a decision to direct the defendant and his mother not to cooperate at Worcester Recovery Center in June of 2014. The fact is June of 2014 is far closer in time to October 22nd, 2013 than October of 2015 is. And the fact that he was not manifesting any symptoms of psychosis that the doctor could see, that he did not present as needing medication, that he did not present as openly psychotic, setting aside the fact that he couldn't make a diagnosis because he didn't have the background, is clearly relevant because the issue before this jury isn't whether he's suffering from psychosis today, it's whether he was suffering from a mental illness on October 22nd, 2013, such that he couldn't understand the wrongfulness of his conduct or conform his behavior. So my concern is if I ask the two questions that I just asked, then on redirect, we're going to get into all sorts of things about the circumstances of his submission in June of 2014. And the Commonwealth shouldn't be entirely hamstrung by the fact that he committed another, allegedly, a violent crime that is almost identical in description to the one he is on trial for. And that is the position we're in.
Here's my issue, and then I'll have you respond. It's not unhelpful to hear the concerns. It's not unhelpful to hear the concerns, but I need issues to make decisions. I understand the agility with which the defendant's going to bring up the direct. I understand the issues on cross that are relevant, and the defense will make its strategic decisions. And I can't make anticipatory rulings. I will tell you, for whatever it's worth, in an entire vacuum, what I think, but it's an entire vacuum, and counsel can't rely on it. We have wide open cross-examination in Massachusetts. It's wide open cross. The cross is not limited to direct. Period, end of story. It's right in Mass Evidence Guide 611. Now, it seems to me, as I think about this, that Dr. Jackson may not be impeached with the fact that he did not consider the June 14th incident in his evaluation. However, the observations he made are available because it is open cross-examination, and he has the witness, and the witness is on the witness stand. It's hard for me to think, I'm just thinking out loud because no one's given me a objection to rule on, so I'll just cogitate out loud rather than to myself. It seems to me that, again in a vacuum, that it's unfair to say, well, you didn't consider June 14th as it relates to any interview because that really doesn't impeach his credibility. Really doesn't. But it seems to me that with wide open cross, the Commonwealth may probe the observations, clinical observations of this witness because we have wide open cross-examination. That's my sense in a vacuum. I don't know if that's helpful for strategic issues for the defendant or helpful for the Commonwealth on how to proceed. If it is, take it for what it's worth. If it isn't, give me an issue to rule on and I will. But other than that, I think that you've done the voir dire. Hopefully it's been helpful to counsel, and now I have the issue well in mind if Dr. Jackson testifies. From the defendant's perspective, is there anything else to do?
No, I just need a second to talk to Dr. Jackson.
Okay. Is there anything from the Commonwealth?
Okay.
Okay. All right. Then when counsel is ready, we'll bring in the jurors. All right. Court will be in recess.
All right.